I was scrolling through a real estate website when I saw it, our family home, the house where Mom raised us, listed for sale at $850,000. My hands froze on my phone. The listing agent's name was right there, Marcus Flynn, my brother. I clicked through the photos, recognizing every corner. Mom's rose garden in the backyard. The kitchen she'd remodeled before she got sick. The living room where we'd celebrated every Christmas. Listed 3 days ago. Active status. My brother hadn't called me. Hadn't texted. Hadn't mentioned a word about selling the house Mom left us both. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee going cold as rage and disbelief washed over me in waves. We were supposed to make decisions together. That's what Mom's will said. Equal ownership. Equal say. But Marcus had always acted like the house was his alone, just because he'd moved back in after Mom died. I screenshot every page of the listing, my thumbs shaking. Then I called the one person I knew could help. My lawyer, Helena. Helena listened quietly as I explained everything. "He can't just sell it without your consent," she said firmly. "You're on the deed as co-owner. Any sale requires both signatures." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by fresh anger. "So what he's doing is illegal." "Not illegal yet," Helena clarified. "But if he tries to close without your signature, that's fraud. We need to act fast." She told me to gather every document I had, Mom's will, the property deed, any communications with Marcus. I spent that evening in my spare room, surrounded by papers. Found the deed Mom had filed 2 years before she passed. Both our names clear as day. Found emails where Marcus promised we'd discuss everything together when the time came. Found texts where he'd ignored my questions about property taxes, about repairs, about the future. He'd been planning this. Shutting me out slowly, methodically, making me feel like I had no say until he could act without me noticing. But he'd underestimated one thing. I kept records, and I wasn't backing down. I called Marcus the next morning, keeping my voice steady. "Hey, saw the house is listed. When were you planning to mention that?" Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh, that, yeah, I was going to tell you. Market's hot right now, figured we should move fast." My jaw clenched. "We're supposed to make decisions together, Marcus. That's what Mom wanted." He sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, I've been handling everything, the taxes, the maintenance, all of it. You moved 3 hours away. You're barely involved." "I'm just being practical." Practical, like erasing me from a decision about our mother's house was practical. "I'm involved now," I said quietly, "and I don't agree to the sale." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice had an edge. "You can't stop this, Alex. I've already got offers coming in. The paperwork is moving forward." "Not without my signature, it's not." I heard him exhale sharply. "Don't make this difficult. You'll get your half. Just sign when I send the papers." I hung up without responding. Difficult. He had no idea how difficult I was about to make this. Helena filed an emergency motion to block the sale. Within 48 hours, we had a court date. The real estate agent, some guy named Brian who clearly had no idea about the co-ownership situation, received notification that the property couldn't be sold without legal resolution. I got a furious call from Marcus that night. "What did you do?" he shouted. "The agent just told me the sale is on hold. There's a court hearing." "I told you I didn't agree to sell," I said calmly. "You should have listened. You're sabotaging this out of spite. We have buyers ready to pay full price." I almost laughed. "This isn't spite, Marcus. This is me exercising my legal rights as co-owner, something you seem to forget I had." He hung up. 3 hours later, I got a text from my Aunt Beatrice, Mom's sister. "Marcus says you're blocking the sale of the house out of greed. Says you want more than your fair share. Is that true?" My heart sank. He was already spinning the story, making me the villain. I called Aunt Beatrice and explained everything, how he'd listed without telling me, how he'd excluded me from every decision. She went quiet. "That doesn't sound like the Marcus I know," she said carefully, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. He was already losing support, and he didn't even know it yet. The day of the hearing arrived. I wore a navy suit and carried a folder thick with documentation. Helena met me outside the courthouse, looking confident. "Remember, let me do the talking unless the judge asks you directly." Marcus showed up 10 minutes late with a lawyer who looked irritated before we even started. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, but the weight of what was happening felt massive. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Howard, reviewed our case files with sharp eyes. Marcus's lawyer argued first. "Your Honor, my client has been solely responsible for maintaining this property for 3 years. He's paid the taxes, handled repairs, managed everything while his sister lived out of state. This sale is in both parties' best interests. Helena stood, calm and prepared. Your Honor, the property deed clearly lists both parties as equal co-owners. Mr. Flynn listed the property without Ms. Flynn's knowledge or consent. He has systematically excluded her from decisions regarding their late mother's estate. Judge Howard looked at Marcus. Did you inform your sister before listing the property? Marcus hesitated. I intended to. The market timing was critical. That's a yes or no question, Mr. Flynn. No, Your Honor. And did you attempt to obtain her signature on any sales documents? His lawyer whispered something to him. Marcus's jaw tightened. No. Judge Howard turned to me. Ms. Flynn, what is your position regarding the property? I stood, grateful my voice came out steady. Your Honor, I don't object to eventually selling the house, but my brother has made every decision without me. He acts like I don't exist. This was our mother's home. We should decide together what happens to it like she wanted. The judge nodded, making notes. Marcus's lawyer jumped in. Your Honor, my client has made substantial financial contributions to maintaining this property. Perhaps a distribution weighted by contribution would be. The deed says equal ownership, Judge Howard interrupted. Unless you're presenting evidence of a financial agreement to the contrary. The lawyer had nothing. Helena presented our evidence. The deed, Mom's will, Marcus's emails promising joint decisions, proof I'd offered to contribute to expenses and been ignored. Each document hammered another nail in Marcus's case. I watched my brother's face change from confident to worried to panicked. He'd thought this would be simple. Thought he could steamroll over me like he always had. But this time there were consequences. Judge Howard sat back, reviewing everything. The silence in that courtroom felt eternal. Finally, she spoke. Mr. Flynn, you've violated your co-owner's rights. This sale is blocked until both parties reach an agreement or this court orders a resolution. Judge Howard wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm ordering mediation between both parties. You have 60 days to reach an agreement on how to proceed with this property. If you cannot agree, the court will appoint an independent appraiser and order a partition sale, with proceeds split equally regardless of who paid what expenses. Marcus started to protest, but his lawyer gripped his arm. Additionally, the judge continued, her tone sharp, Mr. Flynn, any future attempts to sell, mortgage, or otherwise encumber this property without your sister's written consent will be considered contempt of court. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus muttered. Outside the courthouse, Marcus confronted me on the steps. You just cost us both money. Those buyers are going to walk. We'll never get that price again. I looked at him, this stranger wearing my brother's face. You did this, Marcus. You could have called me, could have respected Mom's wishes. Instead, you tried to cut me out completely. He scoffed. I was handling it. I've been handling everything since Mom died while you ran away to your new life. I moved for a job, I said quietly. And I called every week, offered to help. You shut me out. His expression shifted, something almost like guilt flashing across his face before anger took over again. Whatever. Enjoy your victory. But you're going to have to agree to sell eventually. You can't afford to buy me out, and I'm not staying in that house forever. The mediation session 2 weeks later was tense. A neutral mediator named Carlos Garcia sat between us, reviewing the judge's order. Let's start with what each of you wants, he said calmly. Marcus went first. I want to sell. Simple as that. The market's strong, we'll both make good money, and we can move on. Carlos turned to me. And you, Ms. Flynn? I took a breath. I want us to make the decision together. If we sell, fine. But I want to be part of choosing the price, the timing, the agent. I want to be treated like an equal owner. Marcus rolled his eyes. You want control. I want respect, I corrected. Something you've refused to give me since Mom died. Over the next hour, Carlos guided us through options. We could sell and split proceeds equally. One of us could buy out the other. We could keep it as a rental property. With each option, Marcus grew more frustrated that he couldn't just do whatever he wanted. Finally, Carlos proposed a solution. What if you both agree to sell, but you jointly interview agents and make all decisions together? Everything requires both signatures. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed glass, but he nodded. Fine. I want it in writing, I said. A formal agreement that we both sign. Carlos drafted it there, a co-ownership agreement specifying that all decisions required mutual consent, that both of us would approve the agent, the listing price, and any offers. Marcus signed with obvious reluctance. When I signed, I felt something release in my chest. Not victory, just relief. We sold the house 4 months later. Not to Marcus's original buyers, they'd moved on, but to a young family with 3 kids who loved Mom's rose garden. We got $20,000 less than Marcus's first offer, and he blamed me for it every chance he got. But we made the decision together, interviewed agents together, reviewed offers together, split the proceeds exactly equally. At the closing, Marcus barely looked at me. When the final papers were signed and the check was handed over, he stood up immediately. "Guess this is it," he said flatly. I stood too, looking at the brother I'd grown up with and barely recognized anymore. "Marcus, Mom wanted us to stay close. She wanted us to work together. I'm sorry we couldn't." He shook his head. "You got what you wanted. Hope it was worth it." He walked out without looking back. I sat there for a moment, holding my half of the sale proceeds, feeling hollow. Worth it. I'd fought for my rights, yes. I'd stood up for myself. But I'd lost my brother in the process. Or maybe I'd lost him the day he decided I didn't matter. 2 years later, I used my half to buy a small house in the mountains. Sometimes I think about calling Marcus. Aunt Beatrice says he's doing well, bought a condo downtown. But we haven't spoken since that closing. Some fights you win, but the victory tastes like ash. Mom left us a house hoping it would keep us together. Instead, it showed us exactly how far apart we'd grown. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight costs you everything.